Hello. In this presentation, I'm going to provide some tips for carrying out effective staff mobility. Staff mobility can be geographical across duty stations, or it can be across functional business units, or it can be both. Furthermore, staff mobility can be permanent or continuous, meaning the employee moves from one duty station or functional business unit to another without the expectation that they will return to their original position. It is also common for staff mobility to involve geographic mobility and/or functional mobility across functional business units, whereby the employee is expected to return to their original duty station or functional business unit at the end of the mobility period. This presentation will focus on staff mobility across duty stations and possibly across functional business units. It will also focus on mobility whereby the employee returns to their original duty station, either to the original functional business unit or a different one upon completion of their mobility opportunity. Let's explore the key considerations. Step 1. Determine your needs. There are a few factors that you should consider when rotating your staff across duty stations or functional business units. These include the type of work that is being done, the geographical location of your employees, and the employee's skill set. Mobility can also keep talent from becoming stale and motivate them to stay current with changes in the industry. Candidates for the mobility program should be assigned to different duty stations and/or functional business units based on 1. Their skills and strengths so that they are placed in positions where they can be effective. 2. Their interests. This will help them to be more engaged in their work. 3. Personality type. If the role is different from the regular one, this will help them to be more successful in their role. 4. New skills and strengths that they are envisaged to develop. Step 2. Establish clear objectives for the mobility program. This will help to ensure that the program is effective and meets the needs of both employees and their organization. The objectives may include the following. 1. Give employees a fresh perspective on the organization's operations to improve overall team productivity. 2. Improving communication and collaboration across duty stations and functional business units. 3. Increasing knowledge and skills within the individual employees. 4. Developing new leaders within the functional business units. 5. Any other objectives that the organization wishes to achieve. Step 3. Choose the right approach and implement the process. To implement a successful mobility program, the following are the key steps that need to be followed. 1. Create an organizational structure that promotes inter-duty station and cross-functional business unit teamwork. 2. Develop an effective mobility policy that outlines the criteria for who can rotate and when. 3. Ensure that each employee has a clear understanding of their role in the new duty station or functional business unit. This will help them to be more engaged in their work. 4. Decide how changes in staff levels will be managed, e.g., temporary filling of gaps created by the absence of employees due to mobility. 5. Ensure there are adequate resources for the mobility program. 6. Establish a system for tracking employee mobility and performance evaluations. 7. Communicate the program to all employees to ensure that everyone on your team is aware of the mobility plan and understands their responsibilities during it. 8. Once the policy has been developed, guidelines or training sessions may be useful to enhance implementation. Step 4. Monitor the progress of individuals and functional business units where staff is rotated. Make sure to follow up after the mobility to ensure that everyone is adjusting smoothly and that the new system is working as planned. It is also important to monitor their progress in order to ensure that they are receiving the appropriate training and development. This monitoring can be done in a variety of ways, such as tracking employee performance metrics, conducting interviews, or watching video footage of employees in their new roles. By monitoring progress, managers can ensure that the individuals, duty stations, and functional business units receiving staff rotation are benefiting from the change. When an employee is sent to another functional business unit, it is important to also make arrangements for someone to take over the tasks they were performing at their normal duty station. This person may be referred to as a mobility support employee. The mobility support employee is responsible for ensuring that the tasks that were previously assigned to the rotationally transferred employee are completed. Step 5. Adapt your employee mobility strategy as necessary. It is important to monitor implementation so that any changes needed can be made quickly. Changes can include adjusting the length of rotations, or if the mobility is to be permanent, or the employee resigns. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to this question, as the best way to carry out effective staff mobility across functional business units will vary, depending on the specific needs and culture of each organization. However, some tips on how to adapt your mobility strategy as necessary include: 1. Establish clear expectations for staff mobility beforehand. Make sure everyone knows what is expected of them during the time away from their normal duty station or position, and be explicit about when they should expect to be back in their respective positions. 2. Make sure that all staff members have adequate training before they leave. 3. Explain the goals of their department during their time away so that they are not surprised when they return. 4. Use a mobility strategy that mirrors the natural flow of work within your functional business units so that the employees do not feel they are being shuffled around without any rational reason. 5. Consider the needs of your organization when creating your mobility strategy. For example, if one functional business unit is doing better than others, consider rotating employees from that unit so that they have a chance to learn and implement new ideas within the organization as a whole. Individuals undergoing mobility to cross-pollinate other units should be made to feel their rotation is a recognition of their value rather than a punishment for excelling. 6. Be flexible with your mobility plan in order to accommodate changing circumstances. For example, the original position should be filled with a substantive candidate as soon as it is known that the employee on secondment will no longer return to their position. 7. Keep an eye on staff morale during mobility. If it begins to decline, reconsider the strategy and make changes until things return to normal. Conclusion: staff mobility across duty stations and functional business units can provide employees with the opportunity to learn new skills and see different parts of the organization, and can be an effective way to refresh the entire team and jumpstart productive work again. But if it isn't done correctly, it can have the opposite effect. For example, if a functional business unit is experiencing higher than average staff turnover rates, rotating staff to such a unit may exacerbate the problem. Conversely, if a functional business unit is struggling and needs fresh perspectives in order to improve performance, rotating staff can be an effective way to achieve that goal. Ultimately, it is important to weigh the potential benefits and drawbacks of rotating staff before making a decision. Thank you. Compiled, narrated, and edited by Gamelihle Sibanda.